confession time, I came this close to not filming a wrap-up just because this is a combined wrap-up of October and November, and I'm certain you all know what happened. October was the protests and everything else, and that took its toll, and you all know exactly the devastation and massacre that happened at the end of the protest, and I was just not in the right frame of mind to film videos or even talk about books. So my November was about me recovering and, like, you know, sharing old videos I'd already filmed. So yeah, I did not, I read those books, I just didn't have the strength to talk about them in the wrap-up, and now so much time has passed that I'm certain I've forgotten, and I didn't take notes when I was reading this book, so I don't have notes. Yeah, this is probably going to be the shortest, most succinct wrap-up I've ever filmed, because I repeat, I don't think I can remember that much about these books.
That's what she said.
So we'll kick things off the way I always do for my wrap-up, which is I will start from the lowest rated books that I read for the month, or in this case for the 2 months, and then work my way up to my 5-star reads. And the very first book to kick things off is a 2.5-star read, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I'm certain everybody knows, I've not hidden it on my channel, that I am Sarah J. Maas trash. Your girl is Sarah J. Maas trash. I legit want to have a tattoo on my ass, like right on my left cheek, that says Sarah J. Maas trash, and then on my right cheek it will be like property of Sarah J. Maas, because I know there are so many flaws with her writing, but her books are like, they are cracked to me. They give me life. So much life. But anyway, I reread Acotar because I'm part of the Acotar read along, and this is a second reread for me. And yeah, it was a 2.5 star the first time I read it, and it's still a 2.5 stars. The interesting part of this book is still Farah. The most interesting person in this book is still Farah. I don't know, I don't care. Tamlin might be your boo, it might be your babe, but Tamlin is still boring. It's still as boring and plain as white bread. No flavor, no seasoning, nothing. It does not even have any depth, so it's not even rising. Like, you know the way in which bread rises, where you start the dough is very low and then it rises overnight. It does not even have the capacity to rise, because Tamlin is just empty barrel uselessness.
Did I hurt your feelings, pointy face?
And then, like, rereading it, just I have an Acotar, like a review for the entire series somewhere on my channel. I'll leave the link in the description bar. You could go check it out, because I'm not going to go into that much details. But I remember in that video I was stating that a lot of people were saying that, oh, the transformation that Tamlin like went through in Oct-Nov, it was just sudden and out of the blues. And I remember distinctly stating that no, I already saw signs of that from the very first book when I was reading it for the first time, and my reread did confirm it. It had traits of, you know, anger issues and all of that, this controlling personality, this whole belief that he just wanted her to sit down there and look pretty. And I guess that was what lent to the boring, extra boring 2/3 of this book. The fact that Farah was just there living in the spring court. Like, she was not doing anything, she was not learning, she was not growing, she was not improving as a person. She was as stagnant as the waters that ran through the spring court. Am I unnecessarily harsh on Tamlin? Probably, yeah, but sorry, Tamlin is a piece of shit. So if it's your fave, I apologize, but at the same time, seriously, Tamlin, seriously. But anyway, with my reread, the interesting part about this book was the start of the book, before Farah was taken to Peruvian, because I loved reading about, you know, her as a human, her family, what they were going through, the dynamics, etc., etc. And then the other interesting part about it was Under the Mountain. But I'm sorry, like 2/3 of this book, the chunkiest part of this book, I found boring. It dragged, it was slow, just like. Moving on to my first 3-star of the month, The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. This I body read with my very good friend Sarah over at Novel Serendipity. I read this for the book roast, because this was one of Princess's favorite books, and I read it, and I think my problem, okay, it just occurred to me that I talked about Acotar because I was doing a reread and I didn't tell you what it's about. Basically, Acotar is an amalgamation of Beauty and the Beast and the Legend of Tamlin, but it does not really follow it, and there's Fae. So you have a girl who kills a Fae sentinel and is dragged into the Fae realm in order to pay off that debt, and in so doing falls in love with the most boring fae to ever walk the fucking earth and ever walk in any pages of a book. So that's the summary for A Court of Thorns and Roses. Summary for The Beautiful: we have a young girl who goes to New Orleans to start a new life for herself, but when she arrives in New Orleans, they discover that there's a monster on the loose, and the monster is killing people, and the monster is, like, you know, slowly taking over the town and bathing New Orleans in red. But then she also meets another boy, Sebastian, who is a leader of a group and basically kind of like the undeclared king of New Orleans, or rather undeclared prince of New Orleans. And she has this push-pull thing. She's falling in love with him, he's falling in love with her, and it's all whatever. And like, this book was marketed as vampires in New Orleans, and I'm not gonna lie, the atmosphere, like, Renee Ahdieh legitimately tossed us in New Orleans. You were there, you could taste, you could hear the sight, you could taste the food. I was transported into New Orleans. But this book was marketed as a vampire book, and we do not experience vampires until the last 20 pages of the book, which, as far as I'm concerned, was an absolute travesty.
The audacity of it.
Another travesty is the number of times in which, like, there was a build-up and anticipation. At least I assume that that was what was set out to this book, whereby you're trying to figure out who are they, what are they. But I think that Renee Ahdieh, like, took a sledgehammer as opposed to a chisel. Like, you know the way in which when you use a chisel and you're excavating like old ruins, and you use a small chisel in order to slowly excavate the ruin so you don't ruin anything and you can preserve the integrity of the artifact you're trying to excavate. Yeah, Renee Ahdieh went into this with a sledgehammer. Like, it's just the number of times in which she was like, he's inhuman, they moved inhuman, he moved with inhuman light, he laughed inhuman, can you guess that it's inhuman? Like, to the point that when we finally got the review that, oh yes, they are inhuman actually, I went, oh,
Don't say.
really? They are inhuman? Are you serious, Renee? Are they really inhuman? I could never have guessed. Like, that was me. That was legit me by the end of this book. I think it took away from it. And I think that the villain, the way in which she revealed the villain at the end and who he was and his motivations were not compelling and they were not clear, especially because he's a vampire. And I wanted it done better. I'm going to read the second book in the series, which is The Damned, because now that she's introduced vampire in the last 20 pages of the book, I'm assuming that there will be vampires moving forward, and I'm down for that because I definitely want more vampires in my life. But yeah, I gave this a 3 stars. I think that we didn't really get as much of Sebastian, except for the fact that I was very inhuman. And I did like seeing things from Celine's perspective, but I think that if we had seen a lot more from Sebastian's perspective, it would have actually fixed the issue I had with the book, which was that this is not a vampire book. This is more of a brochure for New Orleans in the 19th century, and I had a problem with that. But all in all, the atmosphere was tight, and I'm definitely intrigued to see, because like, they were not just vampires, there was also werewolves, and there were like there were different levels apparently to the monsters that trolled New Orleans. But because we spent so long in the head of Celine, who is new to New Orleans and who is not aware of all this monstrous world on the other side of the veil, it meant that we really could not take in the supernatural part of New Orleans as we were meant to. And we didn't get that until the last 20 pages when she was introduced to it, and it was just very rushed. And I had a problem with that. I repeat, I wanted vampires, I wanted werewolves, I wanted monsters, and we didn't really get that until the last 20 pages. And I think that there was the way in which she wrote this book, where we were briefly in the head of the serial killer that was going through New Orleans. And I know she wrote it, and like, you know the way in which you're in the head of a villain and you're meant to be unsettled, like you're meant to feel slightly off, right? Feel the menace of the page. The villain, being in the head of the villain, I think made the villain, for me, very cartoonish. Being in his thoughts was just hilarious as fuck. I was just laughing. It it was a riot, it was a hoot, and I don't think that that was what she set out to accomplish, but that was what happened for me with The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. So I gave this 3 stars. Moving on to the next 3 stars on my list, which is Scoring with the Wrong Twin by Naima Simone. This was a sports romance, right? It was a football romance. Basically, you have this woman who a twin sister, identical twin sister, gets this amazing modeling opportunity in Florence, but she had also signed up to shoot for Sports Illustrated and she cannot be in 2 places at once.
I have an idea.
Cue in her asking her twin to pretend to be her for the shoot so that she can technically be in 2 places at once. But then see, at the photo shoot, she has this connection with the football player. They have this sexual chemistry that was just like luring them in. And yeah, what started off as a switcheroo for the photo shoot became more because she wanted to keep seeing Zephyrin. The football player was Zephyrin. Her name is Sophia Cruz. So Sophia wanted to keep seeing Zephyrin, but that meant that she had to keep lying to him because he thought that she was her supermodel sister instead of the IT nerd that she actually is.
The drama.
Now this is where things get interesting for me because I've loved the switcheroo story ever since I first watched Parent Trap. I love the concept of that. I love the concept of identical twins pulling a switch on their friends and their loved ones. But the whole point is that the switch should not last for a long period of time, because then I start to feel uncomfortable, because then I start to feel that these people are interacting with someone that they think like they're interacting with the wrong person. And it's worse for me because this is a relationship. This is a relationship based off of the fact that, yes, see, the qualities and the traits and the interests that Zephyrin gets to discover, right, is Sophia's trait, but he still thinks that she is her twin sister. And I liked, like, it just, there was this, it made me go through the entire book with this feeling of, you know, when you know that the disaster is about to strike. So I wasn't really able to fully enjoy the story because I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop and for the truth to be revealed. But the truth didn't come out until really late in the story, and I did not like that it dragged on for so long. What I also had the problem with was the groveling. I don't know if I've said it recently on my channel, but when it is that one of the love interests in the romance novel like fucks up, that's my favorite part of the story. When they do something stupid or something noble or something that breaks the other character's heart, that's what always brings me joy. Because the groveling, I look forward to the groveling, and I feel so sad because the groveling we got in Scoring with the Wrong Twin was not the level of groveling I wanted, and that kind of like marred the story for me a bit, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was still enjoyable, it was still fun. I listened to it on audiobook. It was entertaining. I finished it in an afternoon because I just could not stop listening to it. I needed to know, like, you know, when you're like, you need to know when would the secret come out, how would Zephyrin react, you know, what would Sophia do, etc, etc. And it was satisfying. I wish there had been more groveling, but it was hot, it was sexy. The sex scenes were actually pretty smoky in some parts. Like, they were smoking in some parts. We appreciate it. After that, I read the second book in the series, Scoring Off the Field, and in this one we have a friends to lover situation between Tennyson and Dominic. Dominic is a football player. Tennyson is his friend, has been his friend since they were foster kids. So when he left the system and, you know, he became a football player, I took Tennyson along, and they've been close since then. She's been his manager and his PA and his assistant. But what that also meant is that she has also been in love with him for that duration of time. But Dominic does not want to like muddy that waters. He would rather keep her as his friend because he does not want to ruin things.
Dumbass.
What that means is that she is miserable because, you know, she sees him with all these other women, and she, somewhere in the back of her head, she keeps wondering why it's not her, why he would not look at her, why he's refusing to notice her. And that is where drama comes, because eventually she discovers that, you know what, she's had enough. She's walking away from him. She's going to get another job, you know, going to a new state, like hopefully going to date again. And that is when Dominic then finally gets his head out of his ass and is like, yo, I'm going to lose Tennyson. And Tennyson is a bum-ass girl. And see, that's the thing. This story I also gave 3 stars because although I think that the groveling in this story was immensely better. Like, the groveling in this was just spectacular. My problem was with the fact that Dominic was a total and complete ass, and I just felt like Tennyson deserved better. Honestly, I would have loved if she had been paired with somebody else, because I get to the heart wants what the heart wants. I just wish I could sit down with Tennyson's heart and be like, Tennyson girl, hearty, babe, boo, I got you, but honestly, you deserve better. You deserve better than Dominic. Dominic is a fucking dumbass, but like I said, as is like with Naima Simone and this entire series, it was smoky, it was hot, it was sexy in some parts. I loved it, I enjoyed it. I just felt that Dominic could be very domineering, could be very much of an ass, could be very annoying, and it made it so difficult for me to root for him and for me to root for his relationship with Tennyson, because I just wanted to wrap my fingers around his throat and just squeeze really tight. But then again, I was just like, yo, my hands are very tiny and very small, and he's a football player, which means his neck would be very big and corded with muscle, and I doubt if my hands will be able to go, like one hand will not be able to like reach like 1/4 of the size of his neck, and like that was why I was just like, you know, I can't strangle him, so I think I might just poison him, like, you know, put like stuff to like give him explosive diarrhea for like a couple of weeks. Next, I read the last book in the series. I don't know if she's going to write more books in the series, because there is a couple that had this friends with benefits situation and then ended up hating themselves after it was done. I think that they deserve a book, and I'm not sure Naima Simone. I'm keeping my eyes out. If you actually end up writing their story, I will be down to read it, I promise. But anyway, next I read Scoring the Player's Baby, which is the 3rd book and the most recent last book so far in the series, and the Wild series by Naima Simone. In it we follow Kim and Ronin. Kim, who is reeling like after her divorce from a cheating piece of shit football player of her ex-husband, and as such she's sworn off all football players. She thinks that they are all players. She thinks that they cannot be trusted, they are untrustworthy, etc., etc. And of course, you know what happens when it is that you set up your mind and you're like, I shall never date a football player. The universe decide that, yo, do you know I'm going to drop in your lap, like right in front of your face so you cannot look away? A football player. And that was what she gets. So she is at this expo when she is grabbed suddenly out of this blue by this guy Ronin, and is kissed senseless, and then she has a one-night stand with him. Only after the one-night stand does she realize that Ronin apparently is a football player, and she was like, no, we don't do football, universe. How could you do this to me, universe? We had a deal, universe. The request was simple: no football players in my path. And the universe is like, ha 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 ha, I got you one up. I'm going to give you a baby. So yes, see, a one-night stand comes with a baby, and it's usually, I'm not a big fan of the unexpected baby surprise trope in romance, because I think some authors like automatically assume that just because, you know, they're having a baby together, the two characters automatically fall in love. And I always hate when that happens, because sometimes it's not done organically, it does not happen organically. But see, in this story, Naima Simone was able to actually capture that beautifully well. It was believable, like the attraction that had them having such a great night of sex, the baby that was conceived, how neither of them was sure. Ronin, of course, automatically, because he's just that stand-up amazing guy, you know, is down to helping to raise the child. But Kim has to come around, because remember, Kim also has been burned by her ex-husband, the football player, and so she has prejudices. And the way in which they handle having a child, raising a child, you know, and then slowly falling in love, you could legit see them falling in love in slow incremental beats, and I just loved every moment of it. I was gobbling it up with a spoon.
Delicious. Finally. Some good fucking food.
So I love the believability of how they fell in love. I love the believability of how their relationship developed. I also love the fact that it was not instant love for them. Like the minute it was that they were having a baby, some switch in their head turned, and I was like, okay, now approaching love because baby is on its way. Like that, it did not work that way, and that gave me so much joy. And so I actually gave Scoring the Player's Baby 3.5 stars, and I rounded it up to 4 stars on Goodreads. Now moving on to my 4-star reads of the month, starting with Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This book is just, it was deliciously unsettling. Like I was so unsettled for the entire duration that I read this book. And of course, I started this book around like 10 p.m. because I wanted to read it into like the late hours of the night, and I finished it around like 2:30 a.m. It's not a scary book. Like if I don't know, I can't remember who was saying that this book was horror, and I'm like, yo, we need to like talk about the conversation about what book is horrifying, because this book was unsettling. There were a lot of things that were disturbing. This book was very eerie, like I mentioned in the books to read when it rains video, but scary this book was not. But I actually did appreciate the unsettling tone of it. I also appreciated the gothic atmosphere that Silvia Moreno-Garcia gave into this. Like, this was gothic at its beautiful, most perfect core, with, you know, the house and the hauntings and the images and everything else that just like had you weirded out. Like, this book just weirded me out. And I appreciated the character of Noemi. She's brilliant, she's sassy, she's witty, she has a quick repartee, but she's also vulnerable. And like, there are instances in this book when you realize just how young she is and how untried she is, because there are certain things and decisions she takes, and I'm like, oh my god, Noemi, don't do it, girl, do not do it, save yourself. And you just, it further speaks to her age. And I like the fact that we forget just how young and how sheltered she is until those situations occur, and then you're like, oh my god, you should have, like, of course you didn't know better. But at the same time, I loved her spunk and the way in which she fought to the very end. It was satisfying to me. Now, what is Mexican Gothic about? We follow Noemi, who is this debutante having a blast in the 50s, right? She's witty, she's strong, she's confident, she's also, her father would say her attention flits to different things, you know, so she has one interest, then moves on to something else, etc., etc. But Noemi's life of reverie is interrupted one day when her cousin sends a note, and the cousin's note talks about, you know, her husband poisoning her, his family poisoning her. She's hearing ghosts, their voices coming from the walls, etc., etc. Her father is convinced that, okay, it looks like her cousin might need psychiatric help, but he needs Noemi to go because he never really did trust the cousin's husband. And so Noemi goes to the house and uncovers a mystery that, you see, it turns out that her cousin was actually not losing her mind, and there is something definitely weird and wrong and very, very wrong with that house. Like I said, this was an unsettling book. It was very fascinating. Trigger warnings up the wazoo, because I felt so uncomfortable that there are certain things that trigger me that were in this book. So trigger warning for sexual assault and trigger warning for gaslighting, which are two things that I find very triggering. There's also trigger warning for incest, trigger warning for cannibalism. Yes, you heard that right, cannibalism. And also, you will never look at mushrooms the same way again. And I know I have stopped looking at mushrooms. I know usually I don't like mushrooms. Mushrooms and I have a love stay where you are relationship, and I can barely tolerate you, but I'll try to tolerate you relationship, whereby if I had a choice, I would rather the mushroom stays away. But if I didn't have a choice and maybe someone ordered pizza and it came with mushroom toppings, I will probably just close my eyes and eat it and just suffer. But now I've decided I refuse to suffer. Nope. The mushrooms in this book have scarred me off all mushrooms for life. It was just ugh. But like I said, the reason why I gave this a 4-star, not a 5-star, not because it was unsettling, because I wanted something unsettling to read, and I got this more than delivered. No, the reason why I gave it a 4-star is because I think the book is small. Once again, Silvia Moreno likes to write really small books, as I mentioned in my wrap-up for Gods of Shade and Shadow. And in this as well, the story wrapped up too quickly. But in this, I think the flaw is that she took so long to build to the main story, and it took us so long to get to the final story, that when we arrived at the final story, we had, I kid you not, 50-60 pages, and we sped all the way to the ending. I just felt like it was not evenly balanced. Also, some of the twists, I kind of predicted them, I kind of saw them coming. But I think it's hers. This story is not a story where it's a case of, oh, I'm going to be smarter than you and you'll not be able to guess my mystery. It's a case of, you know what is happening. You know that Noemi is not losing her mind. You know Catalina is not losing her mind. But you are losing your mind waiting for when Noemi actually realizes this fact. And I think that is the core and beauty of the story. Also, I repeat, the world is lush and lavish. The way Silvia Moreno-Garcia describes even Noemi's outfits were giving me life. I just want her to, like, after this whole thing, like, I want her to become my personal stylist because goddamn, that girl can dress. But like I said, I gave this a 4-star. I wanted more from it than it gave, but I did enjoy it in a weird, unsettling, creepy way. Moving on to my second 4-star read for October-November, which is Josephine by Beverly Jenkins. Yes, Josephine. God, I love that. It was such a short and breezy story. Josephine is, she has spunk, she has grit. This book is a black romance that takes place during the Civil War era, the American Civil War era. You had Josephine, who is a hairdresser. Her brother and her father are out in the war. She is holding the fort along with her mother and her sister-in-law. And Josephine has decided that she does not want to marry. No, she wants to expand her business, which is like makes logical sense. But then when this soldier comes in with like other wounded soldiers into her town, and he seems to like her, and she finds this connection with him, she's like, okay, maybe she might consider, you know, like giving this whole having a beau and dating thing a whirl. But then in walks in one of her brother's friends, so when they were children, who was also kind of like her nemesis, who sees her as Jojo, except for the fact that Jojo is now all grown up and he cannot stop staring, and then they have this magnetic connection. I repeat, this was such a fun book to read. I laughed, I smiled, I giggled, I swooned, I was in awe, I was in love. It was lovely. It was lovely. Definitely a lovely, wholesome book, and it just reminded me of the fact that I've not read a Beverly Jenkins novel in a while, and I need to remedy that and rectify that ASAP, because this story was fun. It's like, you know, it's the childhood friends to lovers, like, because I won't call them enemies. She calls him a nemesis, yes, but it's more of you know, those type of silly boys that pulled your pigtails when you were younger, not necessarily that she hated him. And it was all about him being able to see that she has grown, that Jojo is not Jojo, she's now Jo. She's a driven, accomplished woman with dreams and hope and sass and a connection, and he was falling in love, and it was satisfying. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars.
Absolute perfection.
Now moving on to my 5-star reads for the month, and because I was already talking about Josephine by Beverly Jenkins, I figure I should just continue down the romance route, and I'm going to be holding up Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. You all know I read Get to Life, Chloe Brown, and I love that book. And then Talia said, oh no, you see, the Brown sisters, they are the gift that keep on giving. I'm going to blow your socks away. And she blows my socks, my underwear, my wig, everything. She blows it all away. Like, it's currently sailing over the Pacific. I'm still trying to catch my breath. This book was sexy. This book was steamy. This book was funny. This book was heartwarming. And it gave me all the feels, and I love this so much, and I love the spin of it. Okay, so this story follows Danica, my bisexual queen, and she just broke up with her ex-girlfriend, and is basically like, Osun, send me a lover, I need to have sex, right? And a false alarm at a school drill basically has her very good friend Zafir carrying her out like fireman style. But what that means is that our students have, like, because she teaches at the university, and Zafir serves as one of the security people there. Basically the students take a video, and then Dr. Rugby, because Zafir is an ex-rugby player, starts trending. And Zafir has this organization thing that he's working on, and he needs the publicity. So he convinces Danica to fake date him for the sake of that. But in fake dating, like, Danica is like, sure, I'll fake date you, but in her head she's like, but I'm also going to turn you into a friend with benefits, right? And Zafir is like, okay, sure, let's fake date, but I'm already in love with you, and this is going to be so hard. And this just had all the layers of all the tropes I love. Like, it has friends to lovers, because Zafir and Danica are friends. It has the old friends with benefits trope. It has the fake dating, fake relationship trope. It has the fake dating even though one of them is already in love with the other person and is wrecking him to pretend trope. This was just deliciousness and perfection, and I loved every single moment of it.
Perfection achieved.
Talia Hibbert, as always, is witty. Our female characters are strong, independent, amazing black women, you know, who are pursuing their dreams and following their goals and who know what they want and go after it. And Danica is living proof of that. And remember, I told you how I love groveling. The groveling in this book was awesome. And I also love how Talia, like, spun things on his head. You know, usually in this kind of scenarios, it's the woman, like in a lot of romances, it's the woman that falls in love first and then the guy has to get to the point. In this case, it's the reverse. It is Zafir that falls and has fallen hopelessly in love with Danica, and it is Danica that has to slowly get to that point. And just the groveling that takes place at the end of this book, it watered my plants and cleared my skin and just filled my thoughts with beauty and romance and love. I absolutely love this book. Give it a 5-star. I cannot wait to read it again, and I am ready. Your girl is ready for Act Your Age, Eve Brown. Oh my God, I can't wait to read that book. I cannot wait to read that book.
My body is ready.
So my next 5-star read was also a book I listened to on audio, and that is The Jumbies by Tracey Baptiste, which basically is inspired by Caribbean folktale, right? And Caribbean, like, mythological creatures. And you all know how much I love folk tales, and just having this middle grade story about a young girl who has to find the power within herself, and her friends also have to find the power within themselves in order to fight, you know, the Jumbies, this group of otherworldly mythological beings that basically seem to be taking over their town, right? And she has to fight back. I don't want to go into that much details because I don't want to spoil this for you, but this was an entertaining middle grade story. It had so much heart and theme, you know, about friendship, about working together, about, you know, accepting, like, people, everybody coming together to live together, about living amidst the differences, about, you know, not being scared of who you are and what you're capable of and what you can achieve. And it was magical and beautiful, whilst at the same time telling us a story, you know, of colonialism, because the whole point is that the Jumbies were on the island first. The Jumbies were on the island first before the slave ships that were carrying on this, that were bringing on the slaves, you know, landed on the island. And it's a question of, you know, deforestation, colonialism, urbanization, and what that means, what that entails, you know, and the erasure of indigenous culture and history. I loved every moment of this. I read this for the Black SFF-a-thon because that was our group book, and it was a blast. I cannot wait to read the second book in the series because I want to know where this story goes. I am really, really excited about that. But yeah, I gave this a 5 brilliant, perfect, amazing stars. The Jumbies by Tracey Baptiste is that book.
I did not come to play with you hoes. I came to slay, bitch.
Next, I reread Once Ghosted, Twice Shy, which is a novella in the Reluctant Royal series by Alyssa Cole. Now, I've already stated that the Reluctant Royal series is one of my favorite romance series. I absolutely adore that series, and rereading Once Ghosted, Twice Shy just brought me so much joy. One, that cover is, as always, gorgeous, but also two, it just reminds me of how much I envy the strength and confidence of Likotsi, as well as the vulnerability, because she is suave and cool and brilliant and amazing, and at the same time she wants to fall in love and is really hurt at the fact that she was ghosted by Fabiola, which is a perfect segue for me to talk about what this book is about. See, in Once Ghosted, Twice Shy, Likotsi is the right-hand woman of Thabiso. Thabiso is the prince, right? From A Princess in Theory, which is the first book in the Reluctant Royal series. And see, when Thabiso comes to New York in order to pursue Naledi, is betrothed, Likotsi also decides that she should also have some fun. So she swipes right on a dating app and is matched with Fabiola. And they have this magical time. And Likotsi is legit, like, thinking about how she's going to rearrange her life because this girl has blown her mind. Only for Fabiola to just ghost out of the blues, and Likotsi is as expected. She's hurt, especially because she keeps reaching out, trying to contact Fabiola, but like all her messages bounce back, nothing is going through, and so she's trying to move on. It's been a year, she's trying to move on. She's on the train, and who does she run into? but Fabiola, who seems to want to pick up from where they left off, who is just like, as always, charming and beautiful and sensual and seductive, and Likotsi finds herself falling all over again. And just this novella is just about them finding each other, them finally resolving the reason why Fabiola ghosted Likotsi. And it's brilliant. And Likotsi once again confirming that I definitely need to be able to work a suit, because there is just something about the confidence of that queen, including our love for great shoes, that just it warms my heart and fills my spirit and soul with satisfaction. So yeah, Likotsi makes me realize that my go-to wardrobe of t-shirt and jeans, I need to step up my game. I need to step up my game. And like I said, I gave that book 5 beautiful, brilliant, amazing stars. The next 5-star book I read is The Lost Book of the White by Cassandra, Clare, and Wesley Chu. I'm certain nobody's surprised. You all know I'm a trash for Sarah J. Maas, yes, but Cassandra Clare has found a way to warm her way into my heart, and I'm surprised because I did not see it coming. But with the Dark Artifices, yes, but also I repeat, this is Magnus and Alex's story. Magnus Bane is one of my absolute favorite character of all time in fiction. That man saved my life, and that man helped me discover me. I would not be Noria sitting in front of this camera today having this conversation if not for Magnus Bane, and so he would always hold a special place in my heart.
Would die for him.
And in this, we follow this series like is in between the Shadow Hunter series, and I'm not going to go into detail just in case you've not read, because you have to read certain books to get to the series, right? So basically, Magnus and Alec are happy together and they're in love. You know, we stand couple goals, and of course they have their adopted son Max, and then a character from Red Scrolls of Magic shows up and stabs Magnus with a thorn that is glowing, and Magnus's magic is going AY. And so Magnus and Alec and Clary and Jace and Isabel and Simon decide to go to Shanghai in order to track down the mystery of this thorn and save Magnus, while all the while they leave the babysitting of Max to Alex's mother, Maurice. I love this. I love seeing the gang together. I love seeing them play their strength together. I think that part of the beauty of them coming together as a group is the banter, because the banter in this was top notch. But what makes this story epic for me, I repeat, is the love, the very visible love between Magnus and Alec. And when you flash back to how their story started and how their love has evolved over time, it's just very, very satisfying. It's beautiful to see just the capacity, the depth of their love and sacrifice. My heart, oh God, I love this book so much. I love this book. I wished we had more of Eileen and Eileen in this book, because I missed my lesbian queens, but this was still very utterly satisfying. I laughed, I cried, I was emotional.
I love it. I love it.
And finally, the last book for this wrap-up, which is the last 5-star book that I read in October-November, is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Yes, it is a reread because, like I said, I was doing a live show and this was the book we're talking about. And I just... this book, rereading it a second time, just filled me with so much love. The first time I read it, I knew that the core of the story and the beauty and strength of the series is Feyre's development and Feyre's growth. And I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, this series is about Fairy Dick. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's about Fairy Dick, but it's also about a woman surviving abuse. It's about a woman finding agency. It's about a man recovering from sexual assault. It's about realizing that your first love does not need to be your only love. It's about realizing that love can become poison and that it's actually possible for you to outgrow love because people change. So I had a blast rereading this. I had a blast noting all the things I'd missed the first time, the witty banter, the relationship. It was just beautifully done. This story is an enemies to friends to lovers, and it is slow burn, delicious slow burn that was done well and was so satisfying, and the payoff was magnificent. I'm not going to go into details into this book because if you've not read A Court of Thorns and Roses, anything about A Court of Mist and Fury will spoil it for you, but just it was satisfying. I loved it. I loved every moment of it. I would also say though that this reread just confirmed for me that Sarah J Maas really loves the word incarnate. And I will not, I need a version of the world to exist where Sarah J Maas lets go of the word incarnate, because this book had a lot of incarnates. Like, you would think, because a lot of people are like, oh my god, she says mate so many times, and male, female, and like, I don't mind those words. Take it from a girl that read a lot of shifter romances and is still like plans on reading more shifter romances. When you've read a lot of shifter romances, trust me, mate, male, female, they are just words that you get used to, you're acclimatized to. But incarnate is hard to get used to. And rereading this book, I'm just like, take a shot every single time Sarah J Maas says the word incarnate. I would be drunk, like worried drunk, like drunk off my ass. I would sell my house and probably like be convinced my cat is speaking English and talking to me level of drunk, because the number of times she says incarnate, death incarnate, night incarnate, power incarnate, darkness incarnate, high commander incarnate. Yes, she legit said high commander incarnate when she was talking about Cassian, the spring incarnate. I'm just like, so many incarnates. Is there a way for me to incarnate myself into Sarah J Maas's brain so that she can lose the word incarnate? Because
Why?
but yeah, those are all the books I read in October and November. I think about 12, 13 books. Not bad for someone that like started the month really interested in reading, and then everything happened and I just stopped reading. But yeah, let me know what was a 5-star book you read either in October or November. If you read a 5-star book for each of those months, then share 2 5-star books with me, but just drop it in the comments. I am very curious and I want to know more. But that is the end of this video. As always, if you liked it, if you enjoyed it, please do not forget to give it a big thumbs up. Check out my other videos. Subscribe if you want to. After you hit subscribe, click on that bell so you can have all notifications turned on so you don't miss any of my new videos. I make new videos every Wednesdays and Sundays at 2 p.m. EST. Yes, that is 2 p.m. EST, and I'll see you soon. Until then, stay passionate, love books, love yourself. Bye.